today through anonymous allegations. And I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened. And I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California. I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past. But those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Yes, yes, yes. God bless America. Rise in freedom. You're in the right place if you love freedom and you love this country. If you're just tuning in for the first time ever, though, let me tell you what this show is. This is a show where we're going to tell you what's actually happening, why it matters, and occasionally, I got spit right on my chin, and occasionally remind you that the people who have been lecturing you about how to live your life are, in fact, the last people on earth qualified to do so. Who's ready to have some fun? Are you guys ready to laugh? Are you ready to laugh, and are you ready to learn something? I know you're going to love this story. A certain California congressman who once told American gun owners that the government has nuclear weapons, and maybe they should think about that. That same man dropped out of the California governor's race last night. He's the subject of a Manhattan District Attorney criminal investigation. Get him! Yes! He has 55 of his, I'm spitting it everywhere. He has 55 of his own former staffers publicly demanding he resign from Congress. 55. Get him. Get him, girls. Get him, girls. And he's watching every Democrat in Washington run away from him like he's radioactive, which politically speaking, he is. Now, I have a little personal history with Eric Swalwell that goes back to 2018 when I was running for the U.S. Senate here in Missouri. And I can't wait to tell you about it. That's the A block, A1 block, A number one topic. Hi, Joni. Hi, Byron. Hi, Coyote, T-Mill22, Joni Ryan. All of our friends are here. Joni Baloney. I bet the kids called you that in school. We won't call you that here. Then we're going to talk about Iran, and the news this morning, of course, is significant. The Navy is blockading Iranian ports. Starts at 10 o'clock this morning Eastern time. So the Islamabad peace talks collapsed yesterday after 21 hours. The war is escalating. We're going to give you the honest version, the problems, and the case for why what Trump is doing right now may be the most consequential strategic realignment in the Middle East since 1979. So you're not going to get a full cheerleading session, and you're not going to get a doom spiral. You're just going to get the truth, which is the only version worth your time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. After that, Jon Miltimore from the American Institute for Economic Research is here. The Wall Street Journal ran a piece using prestige television as a window into the masculinity crisis in America, and we're going to get into it. So what does it mean to be a man in 2026? Why is the left so desperately threatened by the answer? And why does Jennifer Siebel Newsom, whose husband's party is currently imploding over a congressman who allegedly couldn't keep his hands off his own staff, thinks she has any business lecturing the rest of us about toxic masculinity? Sorry, Mrs. Newsom. I know you're a first partner and all, but you're going to have to listen to me mansplain. And then Tom Pappert from the Tennessee Star is here for a conversation I'm genuinely looking forward to and slightly dreading. So that's how you know it's going to be good, because it requires me to tell someone I deeply admire that I think he's about to make a mistake. Rand Paul is floating a 2028 presidential run. Tom and I are both Rand Paul fans, and we're going to make the case respectfully, honestly, from a place of genuine admiration, that the Senate needs him more than the primary for Republican president does. Now, before we dive in, this is where it gets fun, because the show is not just a show. This show is an experience. It's like coming to a fun political news talk carnival. Instead of pretending like this isn't a circus, we're just going to lean into it and have some clowns. No, right now, during this live broadcast, every Rumble rant that you donate, every gift sub that you make, every purchase that you make during the live show over at forlibertyshop.com, whether it's our Founding Flavors coffee or our amazing 250 years collection celebrating 250 years of American greatness at forlibertyshop.com. Any purchase that you make during the live show, and if we hit $100 as a community, instead of a regular commercial break, you're going to watch a 5-minute Lego-style mini documentary, which is a full biopic of an American Revolution hero, handcrafted for this show, only for today. These are incredible. I know you guys love them, and I really appreciate the positive feedback. If we hit $150, then you unlock the great Grift Off, Liberty Loot Live. This becomes a live game show where you log into your phone live and play for real prizes from that same shop. If you're not watching us live, if you're watching us later, come find us at forlibertynetwork.com. That's the Discord. That's where the Petersens Patriots hang out between shows, and the conversation never stops. So if you want to make it official, join the Petersens Patriots, $17.76 a month. Yes, that number is intentional. You get 20% off everything at forlibertyshop.com and invites to exclusive in-person events. The link is in the description. It's wakeupamericashow.com. Matt Unruh's here. Finally, I've been stalling, Matt. I couldn't start the show until you had gotten here, so now we can go. We ready? Let's do it. So by the time you hear this, Eric Swalwell has been a former candidate for governor of California for less than 24 hours. He dropped out on Sunday night. God bless America. Does anyone remember this famous clip of Eric Swalwell?
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans...
Wait a minute. Was that what I think it was? Was that... Hold on. He stopped talking right when that strange sound came out.
To help him cheat an election. And
well, it's helping him to cheat an election. Were you
Ukrainians to help him cheat an election.
Were you anticipating something there, Eric? Help me cheat an election. Cheat. I always pause whenever I feel a fart coming because everybody does. This is why Fartgate, to me, will always be real. Because right before I'm about to pitch a part, you want to make sure that you're not going to do something in your pants. I mean, sometimes you have a little too much kimchi. That pickled, that fermented South Korean cabbage. So he dropped out last night. He didn't go quietly or issue a gracious statement. He dropped out the way a man drops out when he has absolutely no other choice, surrounded by the wreckage of endorsements, a criminal investigation, a PAC that stopped taking his calls, a campaign co-chair who quit on him publicly, 55 of his own former staffers demanding he resign from Congress, and a Democratic Party establishment that moved from defending him to running away from him with the kind of speed you normally only see in nature documentaries when something large is being chased by something larger. Get him! God bless America. So, guys, I'm going to give you the full picture because the speed of this collapse is genuinely something to behold. And I want you to appreciate it the way you appreciate a really beautiful, spectacular fireworks display. With the awe of it, a slight feeling of danger, and the nagging sense that somebody's going to have to clean all this up. Friday, April 10th, CNN and the San Francisco Chronicle published allegations from 4 women. One of them, a former member of his congressional staff, says Eric Swalwell raped her twice. Once in 2019 while she still worked for him. Once in 2024 after a charity a gala in New York. She says that in both cases, she was too intoxicated to consent. She says she woke up bruised and bleeding. She told a friend about it in a text 3 days later. Chronicle reviewed those texts. And two other women say he sent them unsolicited, explicit photographs of himself. Another says he kissed her and grabbed her leg at a bar without her consent. 4 women on the record with details, with corroboration. Swalwell's response was a video on X in which he calls the allegations flat false. Then, and you really have to admire the audacity, he says he has certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past. He said that. Made mistakes in judgment. That's either the understatement of the decade or the beginning of a legal defense. Either way, he then pivoted right back to flat false. He announced he would spend the weekend with his family and said he would share an update very soon. The update was, I quit, but not from Congress. Oh, Eric. Well, you're not going to quit Congress? Oh. Well, but by Saturday morning, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office opened a criminal investigation. His campaign PAC, Californians for a Fighter, now I promise I'm not making that name up, suspended all activities. His campaign co-chair, Congressman Jimmy Gomez, publicly quit. Remember how fast they were papering over Cesar Chavez? Adam Schiff withdrew his endorsement. Ruben Gallego withdrew his endorsement. Nancy Pelosi told Swalwell it was time to go. Hakeem Jeffries called on him to drop out. California Teachers Association suspended support. SEIU suspended support. Uber, one of his biggest financial backers, walked. And then on Sunday, 55 former congressional and campaign staffers signed a public letter. 55 people who worked for this man. They called the allegations, and I'm quoting, serious, credible, and demanding accountability. They said, we believe her. They called on him to resign from Congress and to drop the governor's race. They said, no one is above the law. 55 people who knew him and worked for him look at the story and said, we believe the woman. And yet, Eric Swalwell dropped out of the governor's race. He did not resign from Congress. Oh, you silly man. We're not done with you yet. He still has an office. He has a staff and a salary that is paid for by you. He gave up his ambition to run the largest state in the union. He is clinging with everything that he has to the congressional parking spot. The House returns from recess on Tuesday. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is forcing an expulsion vote. Members of both parties have said they will vote yes. The accountability machine has begun to spin up. What do we have for him, Johnny? So let's take a formal moment, guys. And I'm serious about the formality here. I want this on the record. To induct Eric Swalwell into what I'm declaring right now on this program to be the Hypocrisy Hall of Fame. Not the general wing. Not the annex. I'm talking the rotunda. The place of honor, reserved for the ones who built an entire public identity out of the precise virtue they were secretly violating. The ones where, when the story breaks, you don't say, I didn't see that coming. You say, of course, we knew this was coming. Because Eric Swalwell was not just any Democrat who got caught. He was a crusader. He was on television approximately 940 times between 2018 and 2024, reminding you with his whole chest, with practiced gravity, with the sustained moral energy of a man who has rehearsed these lines until they feel completely genuine, that powerful men who abuse women must be held accountable. That silence is complicity, that we must believe all women. He said these things on every cable panel that would have him. He managed Trump's impeachment. He built a whole brand on moral superiority. And the whole time, according to 4 women who are now on the record, he was apparently running a parallel operation in his own professional orbit that looked nothing like his television persona. But we're not done with the layers. You're going to love all the pieces of this cake. This is the man who in 2020 was revealed to have maintained a warm, close, extended relationship with a suspected Chinese intelligence operative. Does anybody remember Christine Fang, as she became known? The FBI briefed Swalwell personally about her, told him she was a problem. He continued his relationship until the press found out. This man has a documented, FBI-confirmed, on-the-record history of catastrophically poor judgment regarding women in his professional orbit, and he was still shocked when people started asking questions. Eric Swalwell's defining superpower is the ability to look directly at the consequences of his own behavior and refuse to acknowledge any causal connection. Eric, it's you, baby. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Eight, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9. And then the crown jewel, November 16th, 2018. A Twitter user told Congressman Swalwell that gun owners would resist confiscation. Swalwell replied, "It would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes." He invoked nuclear weapons against American citizens who wanted to keep their guns. He looked at the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, and said, "Comply or we will nuke you." This is the man who wanted to govern California, who managed the impeachment of a president he called a threat to democracy, who told you he always protected women. The irony, of course, did not just write itself. The irony wrote itself, edited itself, got a 6-figure advance, and then went on a book tour. That'd be a good book. Now I have to share my personal story, something I've been waiting to say patiently, without bitterness, with the serene confidence of a man who always knew that this day was coming for approximately 7.5 years. This is a Zen moment for me. My crime has always been that I was just too early for this world. Let's go back to 2018. I'm running for the United States Senate here in Missouri. I'm running the most aggressively, unapologetically pro-Second Amendment campaign in this country, and it's still real to me, damn it! I raffled off an AR-15, got banned from Facebook for it, raffled off a Ghost Gunner, which is a machine that lets you mill your own untraceable firearm at home. Got banned from Facebook for that too. Called for full repeal of the National Firearms Act, called for legalizing machine guns. I was not tiptoeing. I was doing a victory lap on top of the Second Amendment while being attacked by every gun control organization in the country, which I considered a form of endorsement. Enter Shannon Watts, founder of Moms Demand Action. She threatened to call law enforcement on me. She literally tagged the FBI, not because I broke a law, but because I had opinions she disagreed with. And that is the modern American gun control movement in 5 words. File a report. Shut him up. But when she tagged the FBI, told the cops on me, I tweeted that epic response, "Call the cops. I don't give a f." It became a meme. And then, like a large man who spotted what he believes to be a very soft target, in comes Eric Swalwell, congressman, very important, deeply moral. He surveyed the scene, decided Austin Petersen from Missouri was a sufficiently easy dunk, and deployed his signature move. He invoked Jamie, a student murdered at Parkland, pointed at me, and typed, "I choose Jamie's right to live over your right to have an assault weapon, Austin. Next troll, please." Next troll, please. He used a dead 17-year-old girl as a rhetorical weapon to imply, without evidence, without a single logical step connecting the two things, that I was somehow responsible for her death because I believe the Constitution means what it says. I pushed back. I invited him on my radio show, told him he'd have to bring his actual argument. He didn't come on the show. He moved on to the next troll because Eric Swalwell only picks fights he's certain he can win without actually fighting. It works great, right up until it doesn't. I said it then and I will say it again now. The man who called me a troll for defending your right to bear arms is now the subject of a Manhattan DA rape investigation. Oh, the man who threatened American gun owners with nuclear weapons just had his own career nuked from within. I'll bet the women that you raped, Eric Swalwell, would have loved to have had a firearm to protect themselves from you. The man who stood on Jamie's grave to score a Twitter point apparently could not be trusted alone with the women who worked for him. I did not plan this. I simply had the patience to wait for a man of no character to reveal his character on the largest possible stage. You're welcome, America. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. That was me. And welcome. Let's zoom out, guys, because the Eric Swalwell story, it's bigger than just one man's spectacular self-destruction. As deeply enjoyable as this particular self-destruction is, I have my good china out for this one. But the reason that this matters beyond the sheer entertainment value or my own personal interest in despising Eric Swalwell is what this reveals about the system that's protected him for as long as it did. Because Eric Swalwell did not just emerge from a vacuum, as much as I'd like to believe that they have some kind of alien factory where they hatch people like Eric Swalwell out of those eggs that you see. He was created, cultivated, funded, endorsed, promoted, defended by the Democratic Party establishment that knew exactly who he was. And they decided that his usefulness outweighed their concerns. Nancy Pelosi was fundraising with him 18 months ago. Hakeem Jeffries was sharing stages with him. Adam Schiff had no apparent distress about any of this when Swalwell was riding high in the polls. The entire apparatus of California Democratic politics took a look at this man, decided he was their best shot at the governorship, and got behind him with both hands. And guys, let's be honest. Now he's gone. The Democratic Party, they're not grieving. The party is scrambling. The conversation right now in Sacramento and Washington is not about the women. They don't give a about the women. It's about math. Who picks up his donors? Who inherits his lane? Who gets the Pelosi and Schiff blessing now that the front runner has imploded? The people now virtuously calling for full accountability are the same people who were cashing his fundraising emails 2 weeks ago. The accountability is real. The principle behind it, but considerably spottier. So here's the thing. Here's what I believe. As a matter of principle, that does not change based on jersey color. The cease and desist letter Eric Swalwell's attorney sent to his accuser is an abuse of power. If a Republican sent that letter, the New York Times would put that on the front page for a month. That is the behavior of a powerful man using the machinery of power to silence a person with less of it. The left told us this behavior is disqualifying. Oh, I guess they're right. It is disqualifying if it applies to everyone. For those of us who spent years arguing that the gun control movement is not actually about safety, that it is about power, about the fundamental conviction that the right people should be making the important decisions and the rest of you should sit down and comply or we will nuke you, Eric Swalwell is the argument. He's not an anomaly. He's the illustration. The man who wanted to disarm you, who threatened you with nuclear weapons, who lectured you endlessly about your values, that man is now the subject of a Manhattan DA rape investigation. An imminent congressional expulsion vote tomorrow morning, and he spent Sunday night explaining to his wife and 3 children why he dropped out of the governor's race. I said this in 2018, and I'll say it one more time with the clarity that 7 years and a criminal investigation provide. The people who most desperately want to control your life are not doing it to protect you. They're doing it because they believe they're better than you, and therefore they deserve power over you, and you should not be allowed to defend yourself against them. They can even rape you, and you cannot defend yourself. Eric Swalwell believed that with his whole heart. And the 55 people who worked for him and signed that letter on Sunday, they believe something too. They believe that what happened to those women deserved to be on the record. And this morning it is. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Iran. The Navy is moving. Stick with us this morning. Okay, guys? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad and thankful to have you here. If today is your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. Click the follow button every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. The Wake Up America show streams live. You can get a notification on your phone when the show is live. If you click the follow button on your Rumble app, it will notify you when the show starts streaming. But just put us down as part of your regular morning routine. A lot of people, they watch the show for maybe 15, 30 minutes. They pop in, they pop out. Some people even watch or listen to us later. If you'd like to have us in your life, then click the follow button and come back again and join us 5 days a week. You can always get in touch with the Wake Up America show or any of the 5 shows on our network. Anybody at the For Liberty Network is available at 573-319-1586. The text line that you see at the bottom of the screen is sort of the catch-all. If you'd like to be in touch with us, send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Don't sleep on the bonus content today. We've been producing 5-minute mini documentaries about heroes of the American Revolution. We have been having an absolute blast producing our Lego-style mini documentaries for you guys. Celebrate 250 years of liberty with us over at the For Liberty Network, guys. When you go to forlibertynetwork.com, check out all the amazing products from our 250th anniversary collection. I love this picture that Becky Grube, I believe, posted. Or who was it? Yeah, I think it was Becky who bought the Betsy Ross American flag. Are you there, Becky? Becky and Betsy? Same thing, right? Let me check that out because I know we've got our reviews down here. There it is. Yeah, it was Becky. Hey, Becky, looks great. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Oh, yeah, St. Selma. Loves her flag. Got her 250th anniversary flag flying on the front yard flagpole. The quality's nice. Thank you for offering such products in the shop. She says, it did take a long time to get to me, but since it's not made in-house, I know it's not something you can control. But it's here now, and I love it. Well, thank you for your honesty, Becky. And thank you for not giving us too many demerits on that. We do take a little time because it is made with love. St. Selma, there she is. She says, I think Eric Swalwell should come visit Wisconsin. It's turkey hunting season. Oh, Becky. Help us to unlock that bonus content, guys. Head to forlibertyshop.com during the live show, and every dollar that you spend will help to unlock that sweet, sweet mini documentary. Okay? Okay. Should I take a quick break or should we get started? Should we go back? I'm going to take a quick little break, guys. Don't go away. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up. He keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, I've already got my stars. 13 of them. Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
Patriots, listen up. The sun's out, the shades are on, and the Gulf of America is wide open for business. This summer, don't show up to the beach looking like a landlocked liberal. Gear up with the Gulf of America collection. Towels, tumblers, shirts, hats, fanny packs, because nothing says freedom like cannonballing into liberty with style. Whether you're grilling burgers, catching waves, or just flexing on social media, do it draped in stars, stripes, and pure American greatness. The Gulf of America isn't just a place, it's a lifestyle. Hit forlibertyshop.com and roll into summer like the Founding Fathers just handed you the keys to the coast. Beaches, BBQs, and bald eagles approved. You should too. Head over to forlibertyshop.com and get your Gulf of America gear. Summer is coming fast. That's forlibertyshop.com. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers, pronouns are mandatory, and Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense, but you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop for libertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is...
Because I'm running for the presidency. I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean
go
we
in,
take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah?
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
Let's play a game. I want you to imagine two televisions side by side. On the first television, there's a man, very serious, very concerned, expensive haircut, explaining that Donald Trump is a reckless, impulsive, dangerous, genocidal maniac who stumbled into a Middle Eastern war because nobody in the White House could physically restrain him long enough to think it through. On the second television, there's a different man, equally serious, equally expensive haircut, suspiciously similar facial expression, explaining that Donald Trump is a strategic colossus whose omniscient 17-dimensional chess mastery has been guiding the arc of human civilization since at least 2015, and possibly earlier. Now, here's the game. Both of these men may be wrong. Wrong in opposite directions, wrong for completely different reasons, wrong with tremendous commitment and zero self-awareness, and they'll be wrong tomorrow on the same televisions with the same haircuts, and neither of them will apologize for any of it. This is the information environment in which we live. Welcome, I'm Austin Petersen. This is the Wake Up America show. We're going to try and do better than that today. That's why you watch the alternative media, so you can get the news that the legacy media won't give you, because they'll be lying to you. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. Make sure you click that like button. In about 20 minutes, we'll have our first guest, Jon Miltimore. And then after that, Tom Pappert from the Tennessee Star. We're going to have a great show in the second hour, so make sure you stick around. Here's what Donald Trump actually is. Based on years of watching him operate, this is my evaluation of who he is. I believe he is a stubborn, calculating man who creates chaos the way that a magician creates misdirection. Your eyes go to the fireworks. Your eyes go to the tweet, the chyron, the cable news panel of extremely concerned people. And while every camera in the known universe is pointed at the explosion that he just detonated, he's already tiptoeing 3 iterations ahead with what I can only describe as a furious, relentless, completely unbothered execution. So this is what is required to accomplish something like that. Everyone around him has to be more distracted by the noise than he is. And they always are, every single time. Donald Trump has been underestimated so consistently for so long that you really have to start wondering whether the underestimation itself is structural. And here's the thing that his critics get most catastrophically wrong. They think he bluffs. He's not playing poker. He doesn't care about the part of diplomacy where everybody sits in a mahogany room pretending to be polite while lying through their carefully maintained teeth. The back channels, the euphemisms, the carefully worded communiques that mean the opposite of what they say. He finds that entire theatrical layer fraudulent and boring, and so he skips it entirely. He goes straight to, here's what I want, here's what happens to you if I don't get it, and I genuinely do not care which one you choose. Now, if you grew up in politics on the old choreography, and Iran's ruling class absolutely grew up on the old choreography, that looks insane. But it is absolutely disorienting if you are the person on the other side of the table who built an entire manipulation strategy, and then the other guy just didn't show up for the manipulation part. Iran spent 40 years preparing to play a very specific game, and they found out on February 28th that nobody told Trump he was supposed to be playing their game. Now, let's talk about the nuclear program, because this is where I'm going to do something slightly unusual for right-wing media, which is tell you the complicated version, not just the cheerleading version and not the doom version, right? The version where we're actually going to look at what happened and trust you as adults to handle information that doesn't fit neatly on a bumper sticker. Everybody who watches this show is above average intelligence, so I'm going to treat you like it. You can't always teach the D students. For that, we have social media. After the June 2025 strikes, Operation Midnight Hammer, which is a phenomenal name, and whoever named it deserves a commendation, Trump said Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities had been completely and totally obliterated. And here's the honest accounting. Not quite. The above-ground facilities at Natanz took roughly 75% damage. Isfahan got hit hard. Fordo, buried deep underground, took somewhere around 30% damage. Out of Iran's pre-strike stockpile of roughly 5,800 kilograms of enriched uranium at various levels, about 2,600 kilograms were destroyed, which sounds good until you realize that means roughly 3,200 kilograms were not destroyed. Iran still has approximately 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, which is one technical step below weapons grade, which is enough for roughly 10 nuclear weapons if further enriched. And they potentially still have a deeply buried facility near what experts are calling Pickaxe Mountain that may be beyond the reach of even America's most powerful bunker-busting bombs. Those are the facts. We report them here because we're not in the business of telling you things that will blow up in your face or our face for having this knowledge 6 months from now. And here's where the story gets interesting. And this is where I think Trump has earned a degree of trust that his critics will never give him, or the people who have Trump derangement syndrome, of course, will crow about, okay? His stated objective was never destroy every molecule of Iran's nuclear capability in a single afternoon. The 4 official objectives of Operation Epic Fury were, here they are: prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, destroy its missile arsenal, degrade its proxy networks, and dismantle its navy. Plus, a desired political outcome of regime change from within. So the bombs were never the whole plan. The bombs are the forcing function. They're the reason Iran is sitting across the table from American negotiators at all. something that 20 years of strongly worded diplomatic letters and sunset clause nuclear deals completely failed to produce. And here's the verification twist that the critics are not going to talk about. Iran kicked out every IAEA inspector on February 28th. Cameras off, seals removed. So the biggest monitoring blackout in the history of the international nuclear watchdog. Critics say that this proves the bombing failed because now we can't see what's happening. True, but here's the part they're skipping. Iran can't secretly enrich uranium to weapons grade without American and Israeli satellites detecting the activity. So the blackout is mutual. Iran knows that any visible move towards weaponization gets spotted immediately and produces a response they're currently in no position to absorb. The nuclear program was damaged, not destroyed. Real constraints remain, but Iran's supreme leader is dead. Its missile stockpile is a fraction of what it was. Its proxy network is in rubble. Hezbollah decimated. Assad gone. And Iran was sitting at a table in Islamabad yesterday negotiating about what giving up what remains. Okay, that negotiating reality did not exist on February 27th. You can't honestly argue the old approach was producing this outcome. There are honest problems. I want to talk about the problems, real problems, not the fake problems the left invents to score points, but the actual genuine concerns that a liberty-minded person who supports this administration ought to be able to articulate without apologizing. Because if you can't say the hard parts out loud, you're not an analyst, you're not a truth seeker, you're just a mascot. And I'm nobody's mascot here, okay? Problem one, your gas bill. The average price at the pump right now is $4.13 a gallon. That's up $1.14 since February 28th. That's every commute, every grocery run, every trip to your kid's baseball practice. And the naval blockade of Iranian ports that begins at 10 o'clock this morning when this show ends is not going to make that number go down in the short term. Columbia University's Energy Policy Center warned last week that prices could remain elevated through the end of 2026 regardless of how the war ends, because even when things normalize, the damaged infrastructure has to be repaired and the tanker logistics have to reset. Every American who drives to work felt this war before they heard about it. That is real, and it is being paid by real American families. Problems two. Okay, the talks failed. Yesterday in Islamabad, 21 hours, J.D. Vance on the phone with Trump a dozen times. Iran said no. Iran's counteroffer included all sanctions lifted, all frozen assets returned, Iran retaining permanent control of the Strait of Hormuz, the right to continue uranium enrichment, and an end to Israeli operations in Lebanon. So that's not a negotiating position, of course. This is a hostage note. And Iran's foreign minister had the audacity to say they were inches away from an agreement. Now, this was American maximalism and shifting goalposts. That was what killed the deal. But that's the kind of thing you say when you need your domestic audience to believe you didn't just get your clock cleaned in a Pakistani hotel for 21 hours. So, problem three. And I'm going to say this because our movement is better, I think, when it can say hard things. More than 2,000 Iranian civilians have been killed in this conflict. 254 of them were children, not IRGC fighters, not regime officials, people who live in Iran, who did not choose their government, many of them more than you chose yours. I believe that the regime bears enormous responsibility for this war. They built the nuclear program. They funded the proxies that killed American soldiers. They are the reason this conflict happened. I believe that. And I could simultaneously believe that 2,000 dead civilians, including 254 children, is a number that deserves to be said out loud by people who claim to care about human liberty. We say the number, we carry it, and then we make the honest argument for why we're here anyway. Now, I want to show you the other side of the ledger because there is another side, and it is genuinely extraordinary that almost nobody in political media is talking about this with the clarity that this deserves. Right now, in the Gulf of Mexico.
So, I'm just admiring it.
Hold on one second. This is maybe a little overstated here.
I'm just admiring it as I look at it.
Take a look at that tanker traffic.
I'm getting teary-eyed, but I don't want you to say Trump broke down and started crying. So, I'm just admiring.
Yes. So right now in the Gulf of America, there is a traffic jam of supertankers, very large crude carriers, each one the length of 4 football fields, each one capable of hauling 2 million barrels of oil. And they're queuing up off the Texas and Louisiana coastline because the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 20% of the world's seaborne oil normally flows, has been largely closed since February of 28th. And the world, of course, still needs oil, Asia needs oil. China needs oil. And they're all looking at the same map and pointing at the same place. U.S. oil exports are running near 5 million barrels a day in April. The financial press is reporting an armada, and that is the actual word that is being used. Armada, an armada of Asian tankers are redirecting now to American ports. American energy dominance, the thing that Trump has been talking about since his first term, the thing that the green energy crowd told you was a jingoistic fantasy from people who don't understand the modern economy, it is now being proven in real time, in barrel counts and export figures, in supertanker traffic that you can watch on marinetraffic.com right now. If you download the app on your phone, which if you're the kind of person who has marine traffic on their phone, I respect you deeply. So let me give you an honest feeling on this, because there are people on financial Twitter posting numbers that need some air let out of them. Practical maritime infrastructure, which is the export terminals, the supertanker availability, the lightering operations, that caps sustainable exports below 6 million barrels a day. Freight costs have gone through the roof. The economic benefit to the U.S. energy sector is real and it's historic, but it is not the infinite gusher that some bulls are describing. So here is what is significant about all of that tanker traffic and that cannot be qualified away. The people who spent the last decade telling you to phase out fossil fuels, shut down pipelines, and make the American economy dependent on OPEC for the clean energy transition, those people just watched the entire Persian Gulf oil order detonate. And the one country with the capacity to partially absorb that shock is the one that kept drilling. The United States of America, baby. So it turns out that energy independence is not just an environmental preference. It is a national security strategy. And the proof is floating in the Gulf of America right now at about 2 million barrels per ship. Good morning, John. One more thing that I forgot to mention, and I can't believe I actually missed this. One of the Navy destroyers currently operating in the Strait of Hormuz right now as we speak, as the blockade begins at the end of the show, one of them is the USS Frank E. Petersen with an E, Jr. That's my last name on one of the ships. I did not arrange this. I want to take that on the record, but I will absolutely take it. So get him, Petersen. So let me tell you what Trump's critics and some of his more uncritical supporters both keep getting wrong. They keep treating MAGA like a bumper sticker. The critics think it's a slogan for grievance politics that will fade when Trump leaves office. Some supporters treat it like a personality cult that exists only so long as the man does. Both readings are wrong. MAGA is a doctrine. It's always been a doctrine. It's an operating system for a specific theory of American power and American interests that is coherent whether you agree with it or not. The theory goes like this. American strength, real, demonstrated, credible strength, is not a cause of instability in the world. It is the primary suppressor of it. American retreat, American apology, American multilateralism as substitute for will is not a cause of peace. It is an invitation to be attacked. For 40 years, the foreign policy establishment of both parties ran the same experiment. Manage threats, contain adversaries, negotiate endlessly, pay for compliance, accept imperfect outcomes, call it realism, repeat. The results of that experiment is visible. Iran had a nuclear breakout timeline of 12 days. China has the world's largest navy. Russia invaded a European country. So the experiment from previous decades, that failed. MAGA is the rejection of that experiment. And here's the part that's not about Iran specifically, but which Iran is the latest chapter of. Trump does not forget. He does not get distracted by the next thing and lose the thread. Venezuela got the treatment. Cuba is watching very carefully. Syria, which looks quiet right now and is not as quiet as it looks, Trump has the patience of a man who knows he is holding better cards and simply needs to wait for overconfident tyrants to overplay theirs. And overconfident tyrants always overplay their hands, always. It is almost the defining characteristic of that category. The Iranian regime concluded that the Americans would always eventually blink. They would be weak. They had every reason to think that. Carter blinked. Reagan's people sold them weapons. Obama sent them $150 billion and called it diplomacy. They concluded that Trump would blink too. He didn't blink. he killed the Ayatollah Khamenei. Yeah. Yes, eh? Now, you can have serious objections to the method. And on this program, we do believe in the constitutional requirement for Congress to declare war. And that process was not followed here. And Rand Paul, who we're going to be discussing on the show in about 45 minutes, has made that exact argument with the seriousness it deserves. Right? These are not trivial objections. The founders did put the war power in Congress for a reason. And that reason was precisely to prevent any one man from committing the country to a war on his own authority. And I think that you can hold that constitutional objection and simultaneously observe that the world Iran was building, a nuclear-armed, regionally dominant, America-killing machine with a 45-year head start, was not going to be negotiated out of existence by another round of Geneva talks. Could we agree with that? Sure. It's been 1 week since you looked at me. So where does this leave us Monday morning as the Navy will begin blockading Iranian ports and the ceasefire that was announced 4 days ago hangs by approximately one thread? Here's Trump's actual bet. 90 million Iranians, 90 million people who are living somewhere between poverty and the lower middle class, educated, proud, with a genuine civilization thousands of years old, who are ruled by a theocratic elite whose entire business model depends on keeping those 90 million people afraid, isolated, blaming the great Satan for everything. The regime does not survive a prosperous, connected, outward-looking Iran. It never did. Remove the regime. Remove the nuclear capability that made it untouchable. Remove the missile arsenal that made it dangerous. And then get out of the way and let Iranians rebuild. The frame is closer to Germany after 1945 than Iraq after 2003. Break the apparatus, destroy the infrastructure of its power, and let 90 million people who've been waiting 45 years to breathe figure out what comes next. You can argue about whether that math checks out. I'm not here to tell you the outcome is guaranteed, but it's not the reasoning of a man who just wants to watch things explode. U.S. intelligence has assessed that China is planning to provide new air defense weaponry to Iran in the coming weeks. Trump warned China on Sunday doing so would have serious consequences. So if China starts arming Iran while the blockade is in effect, this conflict enters a completely different phase. We're watching the story very carefully, and we will bring you updates as they develop. We'll bring you the truth, no matter how bad it hurts. 3 Dog. Ow. Beware the cable news. They're only going to lie to you. That's why you listen to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. I'm Austin Petersen. It's time to rise in freedom. Coming up, the Wall Street Journal just ran a piece using prestige television to diagnose the masculinity crisis in America. My next guest says the diagnosis is real, but the prescription the left keeps offering is making it worse. Jon Miltimore from the AIER. Right after this.
Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have Drag Queen Story Hour for toddlers. Pronouns are mandatory. And Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense. But you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop4libertyshop.com.
Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal. Patriots, listen up. The sun's out, the shades are on, and the Gulf of America is wide open for business. This summer, don't show up to the beach looking like a landlocked liberal. Gear up with the Gulf of America collection. Towels, tumblers, shirts, hats, fanny packs, because nothing says freedom like cannonballing into liberty with style. Whether you're grilling burgers, catching waves, or just flexing on social media, do it draped in stars, stripes, and pure American greatness. The Gulf of America isn't just a place, it's a lifestyle. Hit forlibertyshop.com and roll into summer like the founding fathers just handed you the keys to the coast. Beaches, BBQs, and bald eagles approved. You should too. Head over to forlibertyshop.com and get your Gulf of America gear. Summer is coming fast. That's forlibertyshop.com.
Welcome back to Wake Up America. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. The Wall Street Journal ran an article this weekend by a comedian by the name of Michael Ian Black. You're not exactly a right-wing author, arguing that American men are lost, confused, and being driven crazy by two completely contradictory sets of instructions. Who's instructing us? Be softer, men. Be more evolved. Also, be ready to shoot the bad guy in the face. My next guy, but do it softly. Shoot the bad guy in the face, but do it softly and do it in a way that doesn't hurt anyone, especially not anyone's feelings, because if you hurt women's feelings, you will be in trouble. Joining us is a man who's never been afraid to hurt women's feelings because he believes in free market economics, so 9 out of 10 of us are males. Jon, welcome to the Wake Up America show, brother. You ready to offend everybody and lose the support of everyone with a vagina?
I'm not. No, but I think this is an important question. I really do. You know, about 20 years ago, I read a book called Wild at Heart, and it was written by a Christian author named John Eldredge. And he talked about this idea through the lens of Christian men, how they're conflicted and many don't know how to be men. And there was confusion for a lot of men. They thought to be a Christian man kind of meant to be weak. And you know, I think I understood it, you know, but I think there is, you know, a roadmap for us, both in the Christian tradition, but also, you know, the Roman tradition. If you look at, you know, the Romans, their idea of masculinity was a little bit different than the ancient Greeks, but they looked and they saw self-control as essential. They saw duty as essential. You know, doing what you have to do, even if it kind of is difficult or, you know, makes your material comforts less comfortable. But I think we do see today, this is much broader than just Christian men. I think we do have a cultural sort of schizophrenia on manhood, and we see it on the right, we see it on the left. For years, I think it was kind of worse on the left, but now I see the right's moving in their own direction with a very, I think, confused view of manhood. We've seen some of these guys, you know, how many women you can bag and how, you know, powerful you can look and how, you know, like all of these things. I think it's kind of a false masculinity.
Like Eric Swalwell, essentially.
Hey, I exactly. I mean, really, watching the downfall of Swalwell is something. But I think he did buy into a really ugly and false sense of what it means to be a man. You know, it means having power, having women, having all these things. And, you know, I used to joke years ago, I said, men judge themselves on three things: how attractive their wives are, how nice their home is, and what kind of car they drive. And I would say that because I'm not saying all men are like that, but in the very basic sense, like men look at these things very superficially, right? But we need a fuller and more better understanding of masculinity.
The reason we're having this conversation is because apparently Hollywood screenwriters are having a difficult time writing men. So Michael Ian Black, the comedian who wrote this, liberal guy, he's arguing that men are genuinely struggling and that old scripts for proving manhood no longer work. So I don't know if I agree with that, because if Hollywood could make Top Gun Maverick and make it a huge success, and it still plays on that 80s fantasy of masculinity that we used to have, you know, shirtless playing volleyball, not gay at all. You know that scene from the original Top Gun?
And I think of the last. That original scene was better than the one from the new Top Gun, right? Where they're playing football, and it just wasn't the same. The original Top Gun one, I never looked at that as gay. It's a bunch of masculine guys playing volleyball.
They're singing "Highway to the Danger Zone." You know what your danger zone is? It's your rear end, man.
That's playing with the
Highway to the Danger Zone.
You know? No, it's. But I'm going to push back. I like Michael Ian Black. It's a really compelling case in that Wall Street Journal article. But I'm going to also push back. There is good writing coming out of Hollywood as well. If you watch anything that Taylor Sheridan is doing now, he's the Yellowstone guy. He did Landman, and his newest show, The Madison, me and my wife are watching. It's incredible. And Kurt Russell plays this sort of New York guy who says, I'm done with New York. I'm done with Manhattan. I want to be a Montana guy. I want to be a man. And his wife is resistant, but eventually the family, sticks their toe into Montana. That show's looking at masculinity in a very different way than these shows. And if you look at it, like the show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it really looks at masculinity through this lens. Like, no, I'm going to do what I have to do, even though it's going to cost me personally. Like, I'm going to show courage in the face of danger. I'm going to speak, defend a woman, even though it's going to get me my hand getting lopped off because she's being abused by a prince with power. That idea looked at masculinity, and I think it's a great roadmap for men today. Like this is what it means. It doesn't mean being a bully. It doesn't mean running around seeing how many women you can sleep with. It means doing the right thing, even when it costs you.
I mean, you might be partially right there, John, but let me push back a little bit because Michael Ian Black describes 3 prestige TV shows: Rooster, Your Friends and Neighbors, and DTF St. Louis. And all these shows feature lost, affluent, confused men, which I know a few. He makes an interesting observation, though, John, and this is the pushback. The men who take decisive action in those shows, even illegal action, get cheered by the audience. So don't you think that tells you something, that there's this duality where what you say here is that they don't admire these type of men? No, the audience really does admire men who break the law and do what they think is right and crush the bad guy, even if what they're doing is illegal. Society wants men to conquer those, to break the rules, to act with abandon, which is, in my mind, very Trumpian. Your thoughts?
I haven't watched these shows. Now, I will say the Jason Bateman one, I kind of wanted to watch. It looks a little too dark, but I think that is not the way you describe it. In that show, Jason Bateman is basically a sex addicted, he's going to run off with his neighbor's wife who he's going to cuckold. And I think they're showing a dark side of humanity. They're showing the confusion that many men have today. I get that confusion's real. I get that a lot of people don't know how to be. I think there is a crisis in masculinity and true masculinity. And I think, you can find its roots a little bit in like this 3rd generation feminism, which it looked down on manhood so strongly that men thought, well, I can't actually be a man. I can't, do what I want to do or say what I want to say. All of this is looked at as toxic. And I get it. There's some toxic masculinity out there. And you look at Swalwell, you can see it. You can see a lot of what Trump does. I think Trump, wades into this too. It's a false masculinity. He presents a lot.
Totally disagree. Trump is the man.
Trump 20 years ago,
Trump
when he's doing
is very
his
masculine.
locker room talk.
Trump is very masculine. Yeah, and that locker room talk is how we talk in the locker rooms, John. Maybe you've spent some time in one. The piece cites the 2021 Survey Center on American Life study, finding that 15% of men now report having no close friends at all. None. Not one. So the male loneliness epidemic is being brought up because apparently 15% of men have no close friends at all. Do you have any close friends, John?
I have many close friends, and it's great that in different walks of life I've always made new friends. Even if I've moved to a new town, I've always made at least one close, intimate friend, and I think that is important. It's funny. 10 years ago, I was writing about the loneliness of men, and citing some of these very same statistics. Mm-hmm. And I do think that is such a danger. We live these lives of isolation today. I think some of it's from we create this virtual world. Like we spend a lot of time in the virtual world. We're not spending enough time in the real world, getting the community we need, getting those friendships. I think there are places to find those, though. And, if it means going out and having a couple drinks with a friend, good. If it means going to church, meeting a group there, that's all right. Having coffee, have those discussions, make those friends. If we're living isolated lives, we're not going to have happy lives. And we are going to go down, I think, a road that's going to be more prone to this false masculinity, loneliness, all this confusion. Humans... I don't even mean just men. Humans need intimate connection. We need real connection, and not enough people are getting it today.
Here's the tension at the heart of this conversation. So Michael Ian Black writes this article and says men have internalized two competing directives: be better, be softer, and be more emotionally available to our wives or our girlfriends, and be ready to shoot the bad guy in the face. And when those two directives collide, of course, the result isn't growth. This is a short circuit. So is the left's project of redefining masculinity creating the dysfunction that it claims to be solving?
Oh, I think it did aid it. Yes, 100%. And like I said, this isn't something new. That book I mentioned earlier, Wild at Heart, it was talking about that tension and how men don't know how to behave. And like, we used to have role models, right? We used to have Clint Eastwood, in the spaghetti westerns. All these men grew up watching these John Wayne, Gary Cooper. If you watch The Sopranos, Tony Soprano was always going on about Gary Cooper, but he had a model for what it made to be a strong man. We don't, today you don't have that. And I think we do need that. Now, I don't want to simplify it and say
we kind of but we kind of demonized going out with the boys. There was this for a long time. There was this, oh, you're going out to drink with your boys. You're going to spend time with your boys instead of going home and being with your wife and your children. You're spending time at the bar with your friends. So, they so demonized that activity that, what the hell else am I going to do with my guy friends? We're going to sit around and drink tea, or we're going to knit. What do women do when they get together alone with their girlfriends? Gossip?
I think they gossip and talk about their husbands and complain. No, I'm joking a little bit, but it's okay for men, whether you're married or not, go and hang out with other men. That's good. That's healthy. But I think we do need good role models too. And if you look, there hasn't been that same level. Where you have this archetype like a John Wayne, and John Wayne taught young men no, it's okay to be able to stick up for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Being able to, being the toughest hombre on the frontier, nothing wrong with that either. Now, if you look though, they weren't out picking fights and trying to use their power to make people feel small and weak. They treated, women respectfully. If you look, right, they weren't, just trying to go and ravage them or see how many. They were treating them like real people.
John,
and I do think culturally we lost that a little bit. We need better role models for men.
So John, my wife is a therapist, so she is steeped in this world, and she might be the only libertarian therapist that there is in the United States. There's a few conservative therapists, but 98% of that industry is dominated by liberal females. Okay, Michael Ian Black, who wrote this article that we're discussing in the Wall Street Journal, his solutions are essentially therapeutic and progressive. It's that men need more empathy, more vulnerability, more emotional intelligence. Do you agree with Michael Ian Black?
I would say some men do need those things. I would say other men, that's not their problem at all. That they might have too much of that, right? And I'll go back. Remember Spider-Man, right? Power but responsibility. I think that's what you need both of. Like men, it's okay to have power. In fact, it's good to be a powerful man, and yet you need to be responsible with how.
Here's Misha. She says in the chat, left doesn't like women enjoying homemaking, wearing pink. Hollywood makes us all corporate execs to be cool. Just ignore. All this man talk is gay, she says. Just be a masculine man and quit talking about it. John? Hey, men talking about their feelings. Look at us. We're being progressive right now.
she hit it on the head though when she said, really, be comfortable in your manhood. Mm-hmm. And I think Michael Ian Black said the same thing. He said, this is what people don't get. It means being comfortable in your manhood. But to be comfortable in it, you have to have some idea of what it is first. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. But I agree with her. If you have to be a man that goes around saying how tough you are and all that, you're actually not that tough.
True.
If you need to flaunt it that much, to me, that's not real masculine.
It's true. The ones who are out there like, I'm an alpha male, you're like, sus. Let's talk about Jennifer Siebel Newsom. So this is Gavin Newsom's wife. She produced a film called The Mask You Live In, arguing that American masculinity norms are toxic and harmful to boys. And she's been publicly and critical of people like Joe Rogan, Jordan Petersen. She says that he's toxic, masculine, alt-right. She's getting a lot of controversy for it. Have you seen some of the videos floating around of her? Your thoughts?
I think Gavin Newsom, if he wants to be president, should get her off. You know,
keep talking.
Don't
keep
speak.
talking.
She's talking crazy. She really is. And here's the thing. She's doing more damage to young men than anybody, these toxic masculinity people, for the most part. What she's talking about is, if you listen to her, she does sound a bit like a crazy person. Like she's swallowed the woke narrative through and through. And, you know, you have young men men are men. This is what the left doesn't understand. Boys are boys, and boys are going to be boys. But when you tell them they can't, when you tell them there's something wrong with being strong, being leaders, they start to have confusion about that. They think there's something wrong with them for wanting to be strong and to do the things that boys are naturally going to do. Christina Hoff Sommers, you know, wrote a book on this, you know, years ago. There's probably, you know, 10, her book's 12 years old, but she was talking to people exactly like Miss Newsom and saying, you're doing great harm to young boys by telling them they can't be boys. And, you know, let boys be boys. That doesn't mean you let them do bad things. That doesn't mean that you let them engage in, you know, I have 2 boys myself. I'm constantly teaching them, you know, those boundaries. When no, it's okay to stick up for yourself here. It's okay to be rowdy. But you also need to restrain at times. You also need to control yourself. That's one of the conversations I have with my boys all the time. You need to be able to control yourself.
Yes.
And that's a totally legitimate conversation to have, but that's not
But
what
the problem is, the problem is people like Eric Swalwell aren't listening. They can't control themselves, John. They can't keep their hands off their staff. Eric Swalwell dropped out of the California governor's race last night. He now faces a Manhattan DA rape investigation. Now, Eric Swalwell and I got back into a tussle back in 2018 because he accused me of being complicit in the murder of the students at Parkland because I'm a believer in the Constitution and the Second Amendment. Okay? He accused me of being a troll. This is all the way back in 2018. Now that he's being accused of rape, I can see why he wouldn't be a fan of the Second Amendment, because maybe if the women had been carrying a gun that he raped, allegedly, had a gun, they would have been able to defend themselves. There is this sort of, when you talk about powerful men with power, Eric Swalwell really is kind of the picture of that. This is a man who believes that you should not be allowed to carry a gun to protect yourself, and then he is also allegedly a rapist of women, if these accusations, of which many people have corroborated on the public record. He sort of is the poster child for everything that the left claims to be against, while proudly proclaiming himself a champion of Me Too and believe all women. Isn't this just a beautiful, dramatic irony, John?
It is. I felt, you know, and I'm going to be honest here. I was so happy about this. I felt convicted over it because I'm like, I shouldn't be this happy over someone else's downfall. But I think he really had this coming. For a long time, Swalwell was the worst person in the Democratic Party. And that's
a lot has been said about me today.
I have a very low opinion of politicians. But he was a very bad behaving actor. And he would say anything, right? He would just lie so easily. And his own party, though, let him get away with that because he was useful. For a very long time, he was useful to them because he's attacking their enemies. He's attacking Trump. And you can't tell me they didn't know what he was. They knew he was reckless. They knew he was predatory. They knew he was stupid as well. And I think he is. And I try not to be, you know, make personal attacks like this, but I have a very low opinion of Swalwell. But I think his party knew this the whole time, and they looked past it because he was useful. And guess what? He's no longer useful. He's running for governor. He didn't have the good sense to realize he had a good gig in Congress. Maybe don't go up to that next rung because all of this is going to expose you. He didn't realize that, and his own political party had to out him, because Republicans had the goods too. They knew that, and said, well, we don't want this guy to be the nominee. So they're doing what happens in politics. They're airing all his dirty laundry. And it's a shame because he's a married man. He has children. He should have known better. And this is the problem, though, today. Any politician a couple generations ago, they would resign when something, like, they had the grace to at least say, you know what, I got to go focus on my family. That's not the norm anymore. The norm is to just keep plowing ahead. Sure, I'm not going to run for governor, but I'm going to cling to my seat. And I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're an independent. I don't care if you're a Democrat. this is something, just get out of politics.
Yeah.
Like go focus on yourself and your family.
And bring back George Santos.
Hey,
he never,
again, I said the same thing.
He never raped a woman.
But he wasn't an embarrassment in his own way, and shame have the grace to resign, but too many politicians are shameless.
Yeah, I know they are, but they win everything. People like Lindsey Graham, and they hold on to power, and they somehow manage to lord it over all of us. I wish some libertarians who don't rape people would win some offices so we could have a little power ourselves. I'm tired of being ruled by our inferiors, especially our moral inferiors. Jon Miltimore, you work for the American Institute of Economic Research. One day you should just run for office, dude. I'd vote for you.
Yeah, you and about 100 other people probably.
You live in Minnesota, so yeah.
No, it is scary. Hayek wrote about this, right? He said, "Why the worst rise on top," and that's what we're seeing now. The worst people are the ones that we're electing, and that doesn't speak well to where the republic is today. And we should be concerned about that when we are, the people that are running, the people that are getting elected, have the worst moral compass out there, and are not the, you're right, they're not the brightest people, but I think it is worse when they're not good people, and that's a problem.
Completely agree. Jon Miltimore, you are the man. I'm so grateful to have you on here every Monday at 8 a.m. Central. We call it Mondays with Miltimore. We can't skip Jon Miltimore, or else we have a weird feeling like we haven't really started the week yet. So now we know Monday, it's done, 8 a.m. Jon Miltimore, we got it in the bag. Jon, will we see you next Monday?
You know what? I haven't told you yet. I am traveling next Monday, so it might be tough for me, but I'll talk with you offline. But I'm going to Tampa for a work vacation.
That sounds good. Workcations are the best. Then you get some stuff. Then you get to get it kind of paid for a little bit. Appreciate you, Jon. Hopefully see you next week. If not, then I'll see you after. Have a good one.
Hey, great being with you, AP. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Hey, Steve, what the hell is going on with Eric Swalwell?
So I just got a message that Eric Swalwell, it's confirmed now that he's going to be dropping out. And you think, yeah, of course he's dropping out. The real question is, why was he ever in? How on earth did he think he could run for governor of California with all this going on? It just shows you that these career politicians have no shame. They have absolutely no respect for the public, for the voters. They have contempt for the voters. They think they can get away with anything. They're never going to be held accountable. It is just completely unbelievable. And the other thing that's unbelievable is all these people, the unions, the teacher unions, the SEIU, Adam Schiff, Pelosi, all these people that pretend now to be outraged about what Eric Swalwell is alleged to have done. They endorsed him anyway, knowing all that. Everyone's been talking about this for ages, and yet they endorsed him anyway. And now they're trying to distance themselves, but we're not buying it, because we all know that this Democratic Party in California has absolutely, talking about their values. It's ridiculous. All they care about is their power. And they are now collapsing after 16 years of one party rule that's been a total corrupt failure. Now they are collapsing to chaos and sleaze and scandal. And it's just another reason that we are going to kick them out this year.
Now that's a guy I'd vote for governor of California right there. Steve Hilton, the California GOP governor, says he received confirmation that Eric Swalwell is dropping out of the race. Now, California does have a jungle primary system, so the general could end up being between two GOP candidates, meaning California would have a Republican governor for the first time since 2011. Okay. Oh gosh, we're so close to that bonus content, guys. Becky Gruby's doing all the heavy lifting this morning. Thank you, Becky. Becky Gruby in a movie. Coming up, Rand Paul is floating a 2028 presidential run, and he says he's 50-50 on it. Now, I'm a Rand Paul fan. My next guest is a Rand Paul fan, and we're both going to make the case he should absolutely not do this. Tom Pappard from the Tennessee Star joins me right after this. Don't go away. I'm Austin Petersen. This is the Wake Up America show, and you're on the 4 Liberty Network.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them. Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
Look, not all t-shirts are created equal. Some just sit there. Others start conversations. The ones at forlibertyshop.com, they raise eyebrows, win arguments, and occasionally get you banned from PTA meetings. Whether you're repping freedom, mocking tyrants, or just making the left squirm, we've got the gear that says what you're thinking. Loud, proud, unapologetic. Grab yours today at forlibertyshop.com because your shirt should speak louder than your neighbor's bumper sticker. Patriots, listen up. The sun's out, the shades are on, and the Gulf of America is wide open for business. This summer, don't show up to the beach looking like a landlocked liberal. Gear up with the Gulf of America collection. Towels, tumblers, shirts, hats, fanny packs, because nothing says freedom like cannonballing into liberty with style. Whether you're grilling burgers, catching waves, or just flexing on social media, do it draped in stars, stripes, and pure American greatness. The Gulf of America isn't just a place, it's a lifestyle. Hit forlibertyshop.com and roll into summer like the Founding Fathers just handed you the keys to the coast.
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart, and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world.
I gotta say, I'm with President Trump on that one. I didn't vote for the Pope. Good morning, rise and freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. President's throwing punches, showing some jabs with the Pope. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Senator Rand Paul told CBS News this month that he is 50-50 on running for president in 2028, that he wants to represent the free market libertarian wing of the Republican Party. That's my wing. And that he'll make a final decision after the midterms. Okay. Now, I want to be clear about something. Before we start this conversation, my next guest, Tom Pappert, and I are both genuine Rand Paul fans. This is not a pylon. This is not a hit piece. The Rubio, J.D. Vance people are not paying us to do this, okay? This is two people who believe Rand Paul is one of the most important voices in American politics that are going to have an open conversation about why we think he's more valuable exactly where he is. Tom Pappert, reporter, editor, Tennessee Star. Tom, welcome to the Wake Up America show. It's good to see you again. Thank you for taking some time for us today.
Always a pleasure, Michael. I love it here on the Wake Up America show.
Tom, let's establish our credentials as Rand Paul fans, but Michael is my name in heaven. Tom, Tom, that's my guardian angel. Tom, let's establish our credentials as Rand Paul fans before we say anything critical. What does Rand Paul do in the United States Senate that nobody else does, and why does it matter that he's there?
Well, I just want to start and say I've been a fan of Rand Paul since 2012. I mean, he was kind of the consolation prize when Ron Paul was stabbed in the back repeatedly by the Republican Party. We got a couple other candidates elected. We got Ted Cruz, who people thought was a libertarian at the time. Whoops. And we got Rand Paul. And now for 14 years, Rand Paul has been alone, essentially, in being the libertarian flank of the party in the U.S. Senate. And that is where I think he should be excelling. I think that the libertarians had, maybe it's gone, maybe it's been ruined, but at the beginning of the Trump administration, the second one, they had a tremendous opportunity. They could have worked with the president to get some key libertarian issues passed in exchange for their support. If Thomas Massie had done this, perhaps he would not be in the primary fight for his life right now, and perhaps instead he could have gotten a couple libertarian accomplishments done. I mean, I think with the numbers so tight in the Senate and in the House that a Senator Rand Paul, if he could maybe swallow his pride, Austin, and support the president, vote with him a little bit more often, we could see this president do crazy things for libertarians. We could see him make gold a competing currency. We could see him decriminalize marijuana. But there's no incentive to do that when you're going out this early, mind you, and saying, yeah, I might run for president and screw things up for your heir apparent, either Marco Rubio or JD Vance.
Yeah, this is a challenging thing, and you're hurting me bad, Tom, because I do feel the same way that there were a lot of opportunities for libertarians in the beginning and that the opportunities were squandered. Not to say that the Trump administration couldn't have handled Doge a little better. I will never stop fighting for Doge because I think that truly is where the Republican Party needs to, in the future, spend some political capital and build a deregulatory institution. Now, here's the thing with Rand Paul. So he says to CBS he's 50-50 on running for president. He says he wants to represent the free market, anti-war wing of the party and build an alliance with the, I guess, country club Republicans. I guess he called them the Chamber of Commerce Republicans. He voted with Democrats on the Iran War Powers resolution. He's been the loudest Republican voice against the tariffs. Do you think he actually runs, or do you think he's just kind of building leverage and influence without fully committing?
Well, Austin, a lot of people were a little bit surprised when Rand Paul ran in 2016. And of course, it wasn't very successful. He got made fun of by Trump a little bit, and he left at a point where he still was able to leave the campaign with his dignity, whereas other people like Ted Cruz almost lost the Senate in 2018, largely, in my opinion, because he was so insulting and demeaning toward MAGA. So might Rand Paul run? I think yes. I think for somebody to go out in April or March of 2026 and say, yes, I'm thinking of running 2 years from now, I think, Austin, that's a good indication that he's probably got the team in place and has a lot of people around him telling him this is how he can best be effective. But again, I just don't think that's the case. In fact, I think that you would end up seeing, if the primary process is competitive, as it was in 2016, that did not necessarily go well for libertarians. I don't think this would either.
Yeah, no, I think I agree whether I want to agree with you or not. As a matter of fact, Tom, I don't want to agree with you. I want to violently disagree with you. As a matter of fact, Tom, I'd like to punch you in the face right now and violate your nap. But I have to accept the truth even if I don't like it. And I do so on this show, and I do it loudly, and I question even my audience's bias confirmation, which gets me into a lot of trouble. But I have to be honest about the math. He did finish 5th in Iowa in 2016. And that was in a field that included candidates who were actively imploded. And the party has moved significantly further away from his instincts since then. More protectionist, more hawkish on Iran. So where exactly is the lane for a Rand Paul presidential campaign in 2028 that didn't exist in 2016?
Well, I don't think it exists, except now all of these things are going to be called anti-Trump. And rather than Rand Paul being able to get onto a debate stage and bring up a nuanced argument that perhaps even though we used to use tariffs for the first 150 years of our country, now the world economy has changed in such a way that this is so anti-free market, it's going to destroy our marketplace. He's not going to be able to make that argument because he's going to have Marco Rubio, JD Vance, possibly a Pete Hegseth, possibly another candidate like this, who are all saying, I support the president's agenda. It's worked out great over the past 4 years. Then you may have a couple fringe candidates who are saying, I hate President Trump and his agenda sucks. How is Rand Paul going to sit there and make an economic argument as it's a man out of time scenario, Austin? I don't think that it exists. Beyond that, he has nothing really to brag about over the Trump administration, really over his 14 years in Congress, because he stubbornly refused to work with the only Republican president that ever would have worked with him. So Rand Paul is going to go to the debate stage with a bunch of theory and a compelling personal story, no accomplishments, and no ability to relate to the greater MAGA wing of the Republican Party.
This is a deeply uncomfortable conversation with me, Tom. And to be honest, I debated even having it because, like it or not, I'm in podcasting and I can't lose all of my audience, right? It's sometimes.
Well, to be clear, I like Rand Paul.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. He goes to the war-torn and poverty-stricken countries and does free cataract surgery. I mean, what a cool guy to have in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he could be a fantastic senator again if he sort of turns himself away from becoming gadfly status like, God bless him, his father did, or Thomas Massie has completely jumped the shark into a total situation where it's like, even if I agreed with Thomas Massie, I have to oppose Code Pink out of principle. I mean, don't I? I mean, if I am an committed anti-communist, if I'm a committed libertarian and individualist, then I have to oppose a commie pinko organization as a matter of principle, which means that if I go to a Thomas Massie rally now, I better bring my pink pussy hats or my Gays for Gaza Palestine thing. And that's not to say whatever Thomas Massie is, but somehow, some way.
Now, to be fair, Austin, if you go to one of his rallies in Kentucky, I've heard that it's a completely different Thomas Massie from the version that you see on X and on cable news. So you might not need to bring the pink hat. You might just be able to have the wool pulled over your eyes by Massie. And again, this all goes back to, this was his decision. It was his decision to hold those rallies with Marjorie Taylor Greene where people held up signs calling Trump a pedophile.
Yeah.
It was his decision to consistently vote against the president's agenda because his social media following was going crazy, probably from the third world, but that's neither here nor there. This was all Massie's decision, and libertarians should be furious with him. But
Tom, you know why? They're Jew-tarded. They're Jew-spurged. They cannot, you cannot have a conversation with these people that there isn't some Jew-coded comment that they have to make and it poisons the well, because it's like there are legitimate right-wing criticisms of Israel and of America's support for Israel, but those are the dominant conversations are being met. It's like you criticize Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene for being inconsistent in some way. Say you
take $7,000
from the Israeli. I took $7,000 to the Israelis, and it's like Tom, I work so hard to make myself as clear as possible, while not trying to overly teach to the D students of society. The people who watch the Wake Up America show regularly, I consider them kind of a cut above. They're the A students. But on social media, you got to teach to the D students. Right, and it's like, I try very clearly to sort of articulate why I feel the way that I feel. And yet these people just accuse you of taking money. No, if you want money, you go be a retard like Candace Owens. You go be stupid. You go buy a house in Doha like Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly. You collaborate with the enemies of Western civilization. That's clearly where the money is, right? There's not a lot of money or power in standing for what you believe, especially if your own people seem to have gone off into the wilderness, Tom. There's not a lot of clout in not being Jew-spurged online, but these people, they cannot have an honest discussion without introducing Judaism or Jewishness into it. And it's kind of like, I wonder if these people really truly know who their enemies are. I think they think their enemies are in Tel Aviv, but their enemies are actually more likely to be in Tehran. And they don't seem to know it, Tom.
Well, I think that's exactly right, Austin. And I think, frankly, a lot of these people, I don't know, maybe they all live in like New York and other parts of the country with Jewish people, but they probably don't spend a lot of time interacting with Jews. And so this has been a convenient online boogeyman. It's become like, I've often compared this to, and I'm not denouncing the conspiracy theory or endorsing the conspiracy theory, but all of this is jet fuel melts steel beams. They are enamored with, Epstein and, the Jews and Mossad and Netanyahu, but yet I don't see it actually impacting how individuals really change their lives, except to make them useless and boring and popular, I guess, with the current zeitgeist.
And nobody gives a shit. You know what somebody said to me, Tom, a good long-time libertarian friend of mine, one of the guys who actually does things, who actually has power and operates, operates on libertarian principles. He said to me yesterday, because I was talking about J.D. Vance versus Rubio and the Iran war, and he kind of bopped me upside the back of the head rhetorically, and he said, I have heard from people who know more politics, and the guy's name's Alejandro, so he's got an accent. I have heard from people who know more about politics than me that Americans don't care about foreign policy. And I was kind of like, you know what? You're right, Alejandro. I was making too big a deal of foreign policy because Americans don't give a shit.
I was recently rereading Patton's speech to the Third Army. That's the famous one. But he says the famous line of, no bastard ever died by or won a war by dying for his country. You win by making the other poor bastard die for his country. Well, that speech starts with a paragraph that says, men, I know you're hearing a lot in the media about how the Americans don't want to fight. They're tired of war, and I want you to know that's bunk. And I think that's about the case for America in 2026. We don't like the idea of conflict. We don't like the idea of war drums beating. But if there is a just cause, and I think this is just, it's been 47 years coming, and I think we have a competent and capable leadership who is pursuing this war, I think the American people are already, by and large, ready to go with what the president wants on this. And again, this is a danger to the Rand Pauls and the Masseys. Are you going to essentially hang your hat on what could be a losing issue that just because it's anti-Trump and you want to run for president, even though your ideology, your politics, your philosophy may even agree that this war is necessary?
Let's give the critics their due here, Tom. Let's act in good faith and try and steel man what our opponents or people who are on the right who would disagree with us violently and call us Jews. Let's steel man their argument instead of straw man their arguments. So the case for him running. So the Iran war is broadly unpopular with a large sector of the general public. He's got an anti-war, anti-tariffs, pro-civil liberty message, and that is attractive to young voters. So the party, of course, kind of needs somebody to make this argument on a presidential debate stage, or the Overton window keeps moving in one direction permanently. So is a Rand Paul candidacy worth it, even if he loses badly, just to put those ideas in front of a national audience?
Well, I think that a terrible loss could actually cement the party further into Trumpism. Actually, that would be the concern. And if Rand Paul would perform as he did in 2016, where he's a blip on the radar, maybe then it wouldn't cement the world into the sort of a more hawkish MAGA ideology, but it might lead in that direction. But for the record, I think there are better issues that Rand Paul could hit Republicans on that are popular with younger Republicans, with minorities. For example, under John Thune, the Republicans have reversed their 2018 farm bill that legalized certain specific amounts of weed. There's no good reason for this, except I'm sure that some corporations were upset about the 2018 decision, and Rand Paul should be up in arms over this because it's something that would resonate with everyday Americans. But instead, I think we're going to see whinging about foreign policy.
Yeah, I agree. And I like the word whinging, and only you would use it on my show. And that's why we're going to have you back as much as we can. I love hearing from Tom Pappert on the Wake Up America show. If you guys like what you hear, and honestly, my staff over here, the guys who are just like kind of more neutral, we got a new guy that started. He's like, I really like Tom Pappert on the show. He's really good. So it's like, I'm getting a lot of good feedback from Tom Pappert. If you like Tom Pappert, you need more Tom Pappert, you got to follow him over on X at Real Tom Pappert. Tell him AP for Liberty sent you. And we're talking about Rand Paul possibly running for president of the United States. I have a Rand Paul Thomas Massie for president shirt in my shop, Tom. But in the last, I don't know, several months to a year to 2 to 3 years, I've seen changes in both Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, and there have been changes in me. I've over I'm not a 28-year-old tea partying campaign for liberty in the back room of a dirty New York City nightclub Ron Paul 2008 guy anymore. I'm no longer a 28-year-old ideologue. I'm a 45-year-old man with 2 decades worth of campaign experience and knowledge, and worked for Fox Business Network for Judge Napolitano. I've kind of done it all, right? But I feel as if now that Rand and Thomas Massie are really failing to sort of seize the moment, that what you've identified, that there's these opportunities now that they're sort of squandering in some effect, are unforced errors that the liberty movement is engaging in. It sounds like you agree with me, Tom, but where do you think it all went wrong? Where do you think that this all started to break down? If you could find an inflection point, where would it be?
I think, Austin, it goes all the way back to 2017, 2016. I don't think that Rand Paul understood the opportunity he had at hand. And I think the better example is I don't think former Representative Justin Amash understood the opportunity he had at hand. And instead, he essentially joined the Democrats opposing the president because he saw his social media numbers go through the roof. Now, I do think this is an opportunity for the rank and file guy who has some libertarian leanings, maybe even calls themselves a libertarian, because the president needs your support. Vice President J.D. Vance needs your support. They both will need it, J.D. and Marco Rubio, come 2028. There is an opportunity for individual libertarians, not through their figureheads in Congress, to actually have an impact on this campaign. I think that is the most the future campaign of Vance Rubio. I'm saying I'm already counting out Rand Paul. Sorry, Austin, and sorry, libertarian superfans in the crowd.
No, I just get it so painful for me personally because I supported Rand Paul vehemently in 2016, and the reason why I ran for president in 2016 is because I was deeply upset with Senator Rand Paul not being chosen as Republican nominee, and I saw an opportunity for somebody to stand up and run for president on the principles that Rand Paul was espousing in 2016. I do think that things have changed in the last 10 years since I campaigned for the presidency. And I do think, I definitely feel like I've come to some realizations and some political awakenings. And I've read some books that I hadn't, and considered some viewpoints that I had never considered before, Tom. I'm trying to take a little bit more of a nuanced view in the world. But in some ways, Tom, I'm retard maxing. Now I have some boomer family members who were in town this weekend, and we were talking about this concept of retard maxing, which is that there's an overthinking that can lead to a decision paralysis that can destroy whatever goals or dreams or plans, or squander any opportunities that you might have because you overthink things. And I sort of think of this movement, my movement of libertarians in the United States, as these habitual overthinkers. They're kind of like the chess team, right? They want to live in this perfect world. They think they know the strategy, but they don't know they're playing 3D chess or 6D underwater chess. And they're completely missing all of these dimensions of things that are happening right now that I see. It's kind of like that Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave, where it's like, I feel like I've sort of been released from the cave and I've seen the light of what is real. And now I come back to my fellow libertarians and I'm trying to tell them, no, please, those shadows on the wall are not real, but the real world is something physical, something 3-dimensional, maybe even 4th dimensional. And now, Tom, they're all trying to kill me.
That is what happens. Well, see, I think that something happened all the way back in 2016. I think a lot of libertarians like me made or had a realization, and that is Ron Paul got backstabbed. We're never going to get him elected. Rand Paul at the time was a first-term senator. There was no chance of him getting elected. With Trump, we actually had and still have the greatest opportunity to enact libertarian policies of any president for the past at least 70 years, I would say. And so I don't think that you necessarily changed. I think perhaps, as you said, you grew. You became a man. You became an adult. You started making pragmatic decisions that are actually going to get your objectives completed, rather than living in a pie-in-the-sky ideological paradise where, well, in my perfect libertarian world, we'd have dispute resolution organizations and you wouldn't even need a government or police. Rather than living in that world, you seem to be living in the world of actual political action. That's probably why people like this show, because it's a show about how to be useful and how to achieve your objectives in society, rather than, again, whine on the internet.
Yeah, it's like I see what Justin Amash is posting on X, and I'm just cringing, and I don't want to say anything because he has been so kind to me and so good to me, and so I won't, because I love
have
him.
friends like that too. You pray for them to wake up.
Yeah, just please stop posting cringe. Speaking of cringe, expecting people to prefer Tucker over Trump is like expecting NBA fans to root for Stephen Smith's commentary over their team winning. So even if they like Tucker, Trump is in the position to make decisions. So he's obviously more important if you have to choose. And now MAGA, all these, speaking of the boomers, Tom, they're all finally the boomers. And I had a great conversation this weekend with some boomer family members who I was asking, I was like, so when did you guys start to realize that something was up with Tucker? And I said, was it just a few weeks ago? Did you just start to wake up to this? And they were like, yeah, and I was like, so your Facebook feeds finally started feeding you stuff that was negative on Tucker, didn't it? And they were like, yeah. So all of the crazy that Tucker has been doing and saying for the last few years, like all of this strange, like, Jesus was a socialist guy and Obama sucked a guy's dick and the limo guy, like all this, the boomers mostly, they had not been hearing about it. But once Trump finally launched into Tucker, and then there was the poll that showed who was more popular. Finally, the boomers started getting into their Facebook feeds, and they're finding out. They've been finding out, Tom, what you and I have known for a long time, and is that Tucker has lost his goddamn mind.
Well, Austin, I think there's another element to this, and that is that who is Tucker talking to exactly? He's not talking. That's what everybody thought for a little while, at least. Everybody thought he's still got his Fox News audience. He's still got our boomer relatives. I always talk about my Fox News uncle. I say my Fox News uncle hadn't heard of Tucker in years, so I doubt that that's true. And I think that now the polling is bearing it out. He has like a 17% approval nationwide, down from 40% in 2023, right when he got fired from Fox News. And he's probably, it seems to me, there is about 5% of the party that is anti-Trump while still being populist. The other 5% of anti-Trump is anti-Trump while being rhino. And so I think Tucker is reaching that 5% of the party, but I think that he's reaching a lot of foreigners. I think he's reaching Europe and probably Muslims living in Europe. And I think he's reaching the Middle East and Africa and Asia. And I don't think that he's making much of an impact in the United States. And that's what happens when you leave cable news and start vying for clicks. Before you know it, you don't care where the clicks come from.
Yeah, I think, Tucker, I think that Trump cut Tucker and Meghan's throat with that post he made the other day, because he knows that the greatest indignity for people like Tucker or Meghan is for them to lose their Fox News shows, and then they have to go to the media. And I think that Tucker and Meghan are just responding to those incentives online, just like you said, the Muslims of Europe who are, probably botting a lot of those posts, because when you go to the posts underneath like Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly, it's all Saeed Farouk, good job, Megyn Kelly. And it's kind of like, I don't want to be on that team. And it's like, when you see Code Pink saying things about Thomas Massey, and I genuinely want to cry, Tom Pappert. I genuinely want to cry because I'm like, those aren't my allies. I make no common cause with communists, Code Pinkos, or with Saeed Farouks of Europe who want to see the United States. Yes.
All these guys, the electeds won't do it. Austin Petersen, you have to be the libertarian wing of the MAGA Republican Party.
Yeah.
Nobody else will do it.
That's what we're
your
doing.
new friends will be MAGA people, and you can just talk us into a couple libertarian ideas instead of trying to bring Thomas Massey back from the deep end.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That's a tug of war I don't envy.
No, you're right. But Tom, I'm on a mission right now. I'm on a mission from God. Not approved by this Pope, by the way. Pope Leo would not be happy with me, but I'm gathering up the last few people who consider themselves to be libertarians or liberty adjacent. I'm gathering up the last few of them. We're all meeting in Manchester, New Hampshire at the end of this month in person. There's going to be about 100 of us, the first meeting for libertarian nationalists. And we're going to talk about where Javier Milei meets Donald Trump, and about the future of the liberty wing of the Republican Party. And, maybe we can get you involved in some of those conversations, Tom. It'd be great. We'd love to see you in person sometime, maybe at an event. Can we get Tom to one of our events? Let's do it.
It would be fun. I used to actually go out and do things before the Biden experience ruined public appearances for everybody. So it might be fun. But I think that, so you found 100 left, Austin. There's 100 sane libertarians.
There's 200. There's 200. There are
200. The other 100 can't make it.
Yeah. There's that. No, literally, there are 200 of us that proudly declare themselves to be libertarian nationalists that want to have an interest in the future of this country. Tom, thanks for not chasing us out of the tent. Tell us, Tom, where can people find more of your awesome opinions online? Because I'm just freaking loving reading your tweets and posts over on X.
Of course, you can find my Twitter, my X account, I should say, at RealTomPappert, and you can find all of my written work right now at TennesseeStar.com. And thank you, Austin, for having me on. Thank you to the Wake Up America audience. You guys are awesome. I appreciate that every time I go on the show, my Twitter following actually goes up a little.
That's what you do when you hang out with the For Liberty Network. This group of people, we all work together to make liberty great again. You have a wonderful day, Tom, and a great week. We appreciate you, brother.
You do the same, Austin.
All right, that's it. So I got to give some credit also to another guy over on Twitter, Austin Padgett, another AP who I stole that quote from about Stephen A. Smith and the inconsistent blowhard commentary. That was AP Ludwig Vet Never Mises. Got to give him my credit. That was what I was reading when I was asking that question of Tom Pappert. Another good libertarian nationalist, Austin Padgett, over at Ludwig Never Mises. Another great follow. So there you go. All right, guys. Well, we didn't unlock the bonus content today, but that's okay because I'll save it for tomorrow. Thank you so much for all that you have done for us this morning. Thank you for everything that you do for the For Liberty Network. If you've supported us financially, boy, you really are special. You really are the type of person to think outside the box, to think for yourself, to not go against the grain. Isn't that truly what individualism is all about? The right to have your own thoughts, damn it. I am not a slave to the beliefs of other people. I'm allowed to change my opinions when superior contradictory information comes along. I can change my beliefs. I'm allowed. I'm a free man. And I have my free speech, at least while I'm on rumble.com. Don't watch us anywhere else because they don't love free speech over on Facebook or on YouTube. Twitter, they kind of do sometimes. I like Elon Musk's. Could be better, but still like Twitter. Well done. I mean, X. Whatever. If you enjoyed the Wake Up America show today, don't forget to click like and share us with a friend in real life. Yeah, do you remember what it was like when you had friends and you could hang out with other people and you could talk to them about things? And it wasn't just work relationships. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. So good that I promoted it twice. If you go to forlibertyshop.com and you make a purchase, we will give you the best damn service in all of the West. The West is the best. 250th anniversary. The 250-year anniversary of the United States of America. That's me, AP, the Wake Up America Show. This is the For Liberty Network.
Not all t-shirts are created never equal. Sleep. The technology still just sit there. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. The ones at forlibertyshop.com, and he's definitely not your nephew. They raise eyebrows, win arguments. He installs and occasionally get you banned from PTA he backs meetings. It up. He keeps your business whether you're repping freedom, mocking tyrants, or just managed making the left squirm, security, cloud, support that actually answers gear that says what you're thinking. Layer 8 tech. Proud. Unapologetic. When your network breaks, grab yours today at forlibertyshop.com. Call Drew before your tech needs a rest speak louder than your neighbor's bumper sticker.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com. Today's sponsor of the Wake Up America show is Chicago Steak Company, and they're giving away free steak burgers on every order. Code 8burgers. Think about the last time that you guys bought burgers at the grocery store. You stood there staring at a wall of sad plastic wrapped ground beef, trying to figure out which one isn't going to turn into a hockey puck on the grill. Maybe you grabbed the expensive organic pack of meat. Maybe you went cheap. Either way, you went home, you fired up the grill, and you watch them shrink to half their size, dry in the middle, falling apart through the grates. Well, Chicago Steak Company found out a better way. They make a half-pound steak burger from USDA prime beef, hand-formed from premium cuts and ship them to your door on dry ice. These will hold together on your grill, they'll stay juicy, and they'll actually taste like steak. So here's the deal, guys. If you spend $189 or more on any steaks that you want from Chicago Steak Company, use the code 8burgers. That's 8 burgers. And they'll add 8 free steak burgers, plus a bottle of steak seasoning, plus free shipping to your order. So $200 in free extras on top of whatever you ordered. 15,000 five-star reviews to rival even our own presence. These people absolutely know what they're doing. Go to mychicagosteak.com/rumble. mychicagosteak.com/rumble. Code 8burgers. Link in the description. Get them before they're gone. And now I'm gone. Bye, guys. Have a great day.